that water just pools up. I mean, we could get a rain for 10 minutes here, and there's flooding.
South Dale Mabry, right?
It's really bad.
Dale Mabry and Neptune.
And I know they've made efforts over the years to try to improve that. The worst thing is they try to improve the potholes, and then they do, and then you have a storm like this, and they're back again. So be careful. Like, if you see standing water after the storm and you decide to venture out, like, just because you think you can drive through that, you probably can't.
Yeah, you've probably seen crews out along the side of the streets doing some work in the manholes, trying to open up some of those storm drains. It's a precautionary measure to combat exactly what you're talking about. The fact that those streets flood so easily. In South Tampa, I'm not so sure what you're going to be able to do about it in the long run.
We're hoping, now the one reprieve is what we're seeing, Reed, coming after the storm. We've talked about it, kind of that wind shear, that dry air that's coming from the north that's going to hit it.
Yeah.
Then it's kind of going to move on over the backside of it. So as the weekend approaches, it's actually going to dry out a lot. I wonder what that will do as far as receding the water.
Probably will do quite a bit. Again, depending on the how much storm surge we get, and we all got our fingers crossed on that one for sure. But the drier the conditions, if it's windy, that should hopefully, please let me be right on this one. Should do a lot to take the water out. People.
Let's hope. Just some last-minute reminders here, and we'll have you covered until 5 o'clock. Typically, it's Clay and Buck on now, but we've got you covered on Operation Stormwatch. When you're bringing things in from outside, now I live in an apartment, so I just had to bring in the stuff I had on my balcony. But if you got to think, if you're at home, if you can lift it, bring it in. If it's something that you can pick up with your own man or woman strength, bring that inside, because those become projectiles. Even if it's something, that you don't think is going to fly away or it couldn't hurt somebody, those all become projectiles. So if you can lift it up, bring it in the house or secure it, put it in a safe area.
Well, my wife had this great big plant that she had hung from the carport of our
probably
house.
Never gained any weight.
She did.
Right, too much.
You didn't help her, Ray?
Burns it all off.
I was in here.
No chance I try to gain some weight. Burn it off by riding.
Well, I was wondering, you know what, I was seeing people, there's some sandbag areas where you had to shovel your sand. I wonder, like, as a gentleman, if I see a woman putting the sand in, do you help out? Do you help other people out? Is it neighbor helping neighbor?
Sure it is.
You help people out, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, if you're a good shoveler, make sure you help people out with your shovel.
You're a good shoveler.
I am a terrible shoveler.
Yeah,
so I would not be. Yeah, you gotta put some elbow grease for that.
All right, J-Rex will help you out.
Send them over to you if you need them. We have all the news you need right here on Operation Stormwatch. Remember, download that free iHeartRadio app. It's free. Have that ready to go, and you can listen to us wherever you are and get the latest updates on Hurricane Ian. We'll continue with Operation Stormwatch next.
Hurricane Ian is approaching. Don't wait till the last minute to prepare. Stay in the know with Operation Stormwatch on News Radio WFLA. On air and online on iHeartRadio. WFLAnews.com. Presented by New South Window Solutions.
Hi, Bobby Maggie here. If this year's stock market volatility has hammered your investment portfolio, now is a great time to consider some options that offer you a guaranteed return. At Maggie, we offer fixed solutions that are low risk, guarantee return, and that great tax support. Those solutions in a portfolio that provides positive annual returns that you won't be taxed on for taking withdrawals. Visit Maggietax.com. Stop worrying about the stock market and positive returns. Get all the tax experience is coming to honestly.
Tampa Electric is now looking at shutting down power to a couple of areas around downtown Tampa.
Western edge downtown in the area of the Strat on North County.
Spokesperson Gary Jacobs says it's being done to keep storm surge salt water from damaging power cables. People will decide tomorrow whether to shut down service to areas near several downtown hotels, as well as parts of Davis Island and Harbor Island. Tampa General Hospital, which is on the corner, affected. Well, FEMA is closely tracking Ian, which is expected to hit the west coast of Florida.
Ian is moving toward western Florida at approximately 12 miles per hour. And at this time, we are expecting landfall somewhere between Fort Myers and Tampa.
Speaking to reporters at the White House, FEMA Chief Deanne Criswell said a storm surge from Ian will be powerful and shouldn't be underestimated. She also warned about the possibility of tornadoes. Well, forecasters have moved Hurricane Ian's anticipated Florida landfall a few miles south. They're now expecting Ian to make landfall around Bethany. Governor DeSantis in Sarasota County this morning. The forecast also has Ian moving through Florida much more slowly.
Most of the forecasts have it slowing down to almost a crawl, and what that means is it's going to dump an inordinate amount of rain. So that could be Sarasota, could be a little bit inland.
Several inland counties are now under hurricane warnings, including Polk County. Hurricane Ian is causing the Florida Gators football game on Saturday in the swamp against Eastern Washington to be delayed until Sunday afternoon at noon. As for the ball station in South Florida, lightning game tomorrow and Thursday at close home. Reed Shepherd News Radio, WFLA.
WFLA News is brought to you by Safe House Security.
From the Moss Nissan Traffic Center, if you're trying to get over the bay into Tampa right now, all three bridges are moving up the street. This report is sponsored by the American Stories podcast. One of the most misunderstood times in American history is the same rich child. While Arthur Miller's The Crucible is painted our view, AOS brings you the honest look at what really happened. Be sure to catch this week's edition of our American Stories or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for joining us. Your Max Defender rain forecast includes a few showers moving up from the south associated with Hurricane Ian as it treks closer to the state of Florida overnight tonight. We'll start to see the winds pick up in our southern counties tomorrow during the late morning hours, and we'll start to see bands of rain spreading across the area, and the winds will pick up during the day on Wednesday, especially across the Tampa Bay area on Wednesday evening. We expect heavy rain as well as winds and the possibility of high storm surge throughout the day on Thursday. I'm Max Defender meteorologist Rebecca Berry.
Operation Stormwatch on News Radio WFLA, brought to you by New South Radio Solutions.
Welcome back to Operation Stormwatch. Aaron Jacobson, Jay Retcher, and Reed Shepherd. Just heard a quick little snippet from Max Defender 8 meteorologist Rebecca Berry over at WFLA, and we'll have her joining us right now, live on the hotline. Rebecca, we just saw the latest 2 o'clock. What did we see from that?
It wasn't as strong as we thought it was going to be at this point, and it's also trending a tiny bit further east than the actual National Hurricane Center track. And so we talked earlier this morning about the potential of a wobble, whether it be from land interaction as it crosses over Cuba, even though it did cross over the thinnest part of Cuba that it could. There are some mountain ranges there. And oftentimes we do see a little bit of a wobble with the storm once it does emerge from a land crossing. And so we'll have to wait and see over the next 3 hours. We'll have a better idea if this wobble will continue as a new trajectory and potentially give us a more southern and eastern landfall, even further south than the current center of the track suggests. But it all will most likely still be well within the cone, just on the southern end of that cone. In terms of what we can expect locally, it's still going down, unfortunately, and that's going to also continue. The more southern the track, the storm takes the cone, the faster it will start to make its way on shore. It'll be a stronger storm with less time to weaken due to shear across the northern Gulf.
Early
and
November
the further
day.
south it goes, the lesser the impacts on the Tampa Bay area, but they are not in any way eliminated. We're still looking at very heavy rainfall. And I was just talking with the National Weather Service, and they're most concerned about flooding, even over inland areas, because of how saturated we are. I'm sure you guys have been caught in an afternoon thunderstorm in the last month, seeing how much the water starts to build up very quickly just because of how saturated we are because of the end of rainy season. So the National Weather Service in Ruskin here is most worried about flooding from storm surge and just from heavy rainfall because of the fact that we just don't have very dry ground right now.
Rebecca, we've asked you a lot about our area, also down south. Let's talk a little bit about heading farther out east, the Lakeland, Orlando area. What can some of those folks be prepared for in the next 24 to 48 hours?
If you were to draw a line from where the eye of the storm makes impact across the state for its path, to the north and east of that line is going to see the heaviest rainfall. And we've got some rainfall estimations close to 15 inches. And so I do think we're going to see very damaging flooding from some heavy rainfall over Lakeland and parts of Polk County. That's a possibility. Wherever the storm ends up making landfall, immediately to the north and east of that eye is where we're going to see those very damaging rainfall totals. And so we're also worried about the threat for tornadoes, and it's a little different when we have such high waters and we're worried about flooding when we're talking about tornadoes, because normally we say go to the lowest room of your house, go to the lowest floor of your house, and that may not be the best option if you're also experiencing that torrential rain. So it's just something to think about, identifying that safe room, perhaps not on the first floor. Have your safe room on the first and second floors, because you just don't know what you're going to be up against in terms of flooding with this storm.
Rebecca, that's an excellent point. We really haven't talked much about tornadoes yet and the possibility of them coming as a result of the hurricane. What is our danger of a tornado as a result of this?
We expect to see tornadoes. Hurricanes within those outer rain bands, it's starting to spin, and that just, especially once it starts to encounter the friction of land and the rain band changes speed, different parts of the rain band are moving faster than the others based on the fact that some of it is over land or over a higher terrain land than a lower terrain land, and that all creates spin. And when you have spin, you do have the threat of tornadoes. So we do expect there to be a few tornadoes as the storm makes its way on shore. And most likely for our inland areas, aside from flooding from rainfall, tornadoes are the biggest threat with this system.
Rebecca Berry, Max Defender 8 meteorologist, joining us now, and has been joining us all day long yesterday and last week. So, Rebecca, really appreciate that. We've been talking a lot about the worst-case scenario. What would you say the best-case scenario is for Tampa Bay right now?
The best-case scenario for Tampa Bay would be for it to turn in as early as possible and make its way across the state faster. It would be a stronger storm for those areas, and the storm surge would be south of us, and it would be terrible for Naples and terrible for those areas. But for the Tampa Bay area, the earlier the storm turns in, the better. I just don't see any way that we could get a western wobble to where we did not get significant impact. It's just too far to the east at this point for it to move offshore from us and not impact us in a terrible way. We would need that easternmost turn and the southernmost turn for the least impact on the Tampa Bay area.
So with that in mind, Rebecca, do we dare use the word trend in terms of the wobble that we're seeing, the slight shift to the south and to the east?
I can tell you that Chief Meteorologist Jeff Baradelli and I just got very excited looking at a map and watching the storm make a jaunt towards the east, and we are hoping sincerely that will continue over the next 3 to 6 hours. It is a watch and wait game at this point. It could self-correct and get back on track for a more Tampa Bay to Sarasota landfall, but if the wobble continues that's occurring right this second that we can see on satellite and radar, that would be very beneficial for our area specifically. Obviously not for our friends to the south, but we are sincerely hoping for the wobble.
And that's the weirdest part about all this, Rebecca, is because we don't want anyone south of us to get hit hard. My family's in Sarasota in a mandatory evacuation zone A. It's not that we want that, but can you talk, Rebecca, we kind of were alluding to it earlier, that just kind of the way we're positioned here, downtown Tampa, in the bay, that little nook, it's very awkward. As far as storm surge, the potential, if it was the worst-case scenario in Tampa Bay, compared to what, let's say, the worst-case scenario in Naples would be as far as the storm surge.
And so the storm surge, when it approaches just a flat coastline, it's like a wave that breaks. And so it rushes inland, and it's terrible, and it does wipe out areas, and it does wipe out homes. That's when you see the footage from Hurricane Michael with homes just swept from their bases. That's what storm surge does. So it's terrible no matter where it is. But what makes the Tampa Bay area the most precarious is the funneling effect. And so the fact that a large volume of water would enter the bay, which is relatively wide, to what you consider the top of the bay to be, the storm surge would be increasing exponentially as it was funneled in towards the Hillshore River. So areas like Harbor Island, areas like Davis Island, we would see the highest storm surge of the entire state in those small areas right there in downtown Tampa, because all of that water is traveling in one direction and it's getting funneled into an even tighter space. And so it would be catastrophic if we were to see a worst case scenario where the right side of the eye push those onshore winds into the Tampa Bay area.
When we hear potential 10 to 15 feet storm surge, you know, it's easy to say it, but for people like us that haven't actually seen that, let's use Davis Island as an example. If you were to have, let's say, an 8 to 10 foot storm surge, what would that actually look like in Davis Island?
Residents that lived in one-story homes and chose not to evacuate would be on their roofs in the best case scenario waiting to get rescued. Residents that have two-story homes would be trapped in their second story.
That is as real as it gets. Yeah. Max Defender 8 meteorologist Rebecca Berry, thank you so much, and we'll catch up with all of you over at WFLA shortly. Thank you, Rebecca.
Idiots!
The reason I asked that question, you've been doing a great job. And fantastic, Rebecca. And I had to ask that question because I think a lot of us, first of all, I'm a visual learner, so we can say something, but to actually kind of try to place in your mind what that will look like, and the way Rebecca just described that as far as a one-story home or some building in Davis Island, for you to be underwater where you'll be on your rooftop, this is not, we're talking 8 to 10 foot storm surge. Reed, let's jump on the mic here. Reed, you forgot radio for a second. Did you think we were like doing a break or something?
We're going to break. It's kind of like this. If I lay a gun down on the table, the chances are you're not going to be afraid of it. If I pick it up and fire it, then you know what it's all about, and you're going to be terrified.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. It feels like when Rebecca said that, I felt it. I envisioned it. I saw Davis Island. I saw, my buddy Mark Starling, who works in Asheville right now for iHeart, who used to work here. I used to go to his place all the time in Davis Island, and that's the first thing that popped in my mind. I would be sitting on his roof, and that is scary. That is terrifying right there. So it's certainly, we asked for the best case scenario, we asked for the worst case scenario. I hate that we're rooting for it to make that wobble, because we do have a lot of listeners and family living south of us here in Tampa Bay. But that's why I kind of wanted to ask about the worst case scenario in Tampa Bay, because of where we are, because of the little nook and how that will swirl everything, kind of pick it up and throw it onto us. But as far as water is concerned, it would be, as far as in Florida on this coast, Tampa Bay getting that worst case scenario is probably worse than any other place on the coast.
I think one thing this is going to do in the long run, guys, is it's going to open our eyes. It's going to open the eyes of the city and county officials in Hillsborough and Pinellas.
Oh, they all got their feelings, sir, because I got a camera.
And I think a lot of people are going to say, hey, you know what? They weren't kidding when they started talking about how bad this could be. And we just, we never get hit with a hurricane. Well, maybe this will open people's eyes, and so let's pay attention.
Yes, we'll see. We'll have the latest for you here. We want to give you the latest on the public news. We told you earlier that some stores are going to be closing here in Tampa Bay a little early, probably this afternoon, but we have official word. Public stores around Tampa Bay are closing early today. Stores in 11 Florida counties will close by 6 p.m. 6 p.m. So now's the time. Go over to Publix and get your final preparations as far as food, water, whatever you have to get. Now